Hello, welcome to Big Picture Monday. This is Cali Black here with everything you need to know in short and simple version, as short as I can get it, so that you can feel confident going through this next week's Come Follow Me readings. This week we're studying a short reading assignment. Can you believe that? 1 Kings chapter 17 through 19. We've had kind of some long ones recently and kind of some random scattered ones. This week we are studying just 3 chapters that are all right in a row, right after each other. So I will walk you through them real quick, but what's going to be the bulk of the information you need to know this week is actually what happened before we get to 1 Kings chapter 17, because this is actually pretty important. And as a reminder, today is the day. You need your new study guide. This is for July through September. Remember, in the Come Follow Me curriculum, they count each week by if it ends, if there's any days that are in the next month. And believe it or not, we hit July this week, you guys. It's insane. So this is July, August, and September. That's all covered in this next study guide. You can grab a physical copy on Amazon, digital copy on my website, comefollowmestudy.com. You're definitely going to want it for these next 3 months, because we study so much. So let's start with where we start off here in 1 Kings. If you remember, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, and 2 Kings, these 4 books all together, you can kind of think of them as one whole group together. They're telling the story of how Israel turned to kings as their rulers, right? We've finished up talking about the judges. Now we're in this kings section, which is 1, 2 Samuel, and 1 and 2 Kings. So we've learned about Saul. He was the first king. Had a great starting trajectory and then turned away from the Lord. We learned about David, amazing starting trajectory, really so faith-filled, and turned away from the Lord towards the end of his life. And then we talked about David's son, Solomon, who started off great as well, so wise. And last week we ended with, he turned away from the Lord, started worshiping some false idols, and then Solomon died. And that's where we left off in 1 Kings chapter 11. Now, we only skipped 5 chapters in between last week and this week with 1 Kings chapter 17. But let me tell you what happened in those 5 chapters, because it's very important. I usually am like, in case you're interested. No. You have to know this part in order to understand the rest of the historical part of the Bible, okay? So stay with me. I'm going to make it interesting, I promise. Okay, so far we have had all of the 12 tribes of Israel living together, calling them Israel, all ruled under one king, right? Or they had judges at some point, kind of disjointed, but now they're all together under one king. Well, after Solomon died, there was so much contention and fighting in the land and all sorts of crazy stuff going on that they split into 2 distinct kingdoms. Like, permanently. They are now 2 completely, permanently distinct kingdoms, each with their own king. There's a northern kingdom and there's a southern kingdom. All right, so let's talk about these 2 kingdoms. Let's start with the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom, this is confusing, is now called Israel. Same exact name, okay? So that's the confusing part. But in your mind, just think like, oh, this is the new Israel. Now, from now on, when you hear Israel, it's going to refer to the northern kingdom, Israel. The northern kingdom had 10 of the 12 tribes. So it had the most amount of tribes. It also had the largest geographical area. So really big area in the northern kingdom. It's called Israel. They had to pick a new capital city, though. The capital city is Samaria. So sometimes you'll hear it kind of referred to as Samaria, or when we see the city Samaria, you can be like, oh, that's the capital city, the new capital city of the northern kingdom here. And kind of the ruling tribe, the tribe that was in charge, is the tribe of Ephraim. So sometimes you'll also see it referred to as Ephraim, although not so much in these historical books. When we get to poetry next month, then we'll hear it referred to more as Ephraim. So northern kingdom, new Israel, 10 tribes, capital city of Samaria, more people, more area. Ephraim is the ruling tribe. Okay, that's what you need to know. Southern kingdom is called Judah. Judah is the name of the southern kingdom. It has, of course, the 2 other tribes, which are the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. Benjamin is the other tribe there in the southern kingdom. They have the capital city of Jerusalem. So they are keeping the capital city that had been originally the capital city of all of Israel when it was combined together. So that means that Judah, the southern kingdom, has Solomon's temple and the big, huge palace that David and Solomon built. That is all in the southern kingdom. So they were able to keep a lot of the same structures and government systems that they had before because they were kind of staying put in that area. Smaller geographical area, smaller group of people. As you can imagine, the ruling tribe out of Judah and Benjamin is Judah. And these people, you'll hear them referred to as Judahites or Jews. A little bit later on, we'll start calling them Jews. But for the next little bit in 1st and 2nd Kings, they're usually referred to as Judahites. Just to make some distinction here, okay? And then we've got like Israelites slash Samaritans, are the name of the people who live in Samaria in the northern kingdom. Okay, are we understanding this? Because from now on, for the rest of the history part of learning about the Bible, you're going to need to know, oh, I'm learning a story. Is it in the northern kingdom or is it in the southern kingdom? Because that's going to play, they are acting as two complete kingdoms from now on. See? Hopefully that wasn't too bad. Let's start now with chapter 17 of 1 Kings. We are in, this week, the northern kingdom, okay? So forget about Judah for right now. We're going to talk about the northern kingdom of Israel with these 10 tribes. And we start with a king named King Ahab. Okay, funny side note, I just had to stop and start recording again because I'm in Arizona and we got a dust storm warning. And boy, do those set off your phone alarms. So good times with our dust storms here. Okay, so King Ahab, he is a wicked man, and historically it's been agreed that he is one of the most politically powerful kings that Israel ever had. So if you can imagine, politically powerful, doesn't listen to the Lord, not a good combo for King Ahab where we're starting off, okay? And King Ahab married a woman named Jezebel. Jezebel was not an Israelite, so when she came to marry King Ahab, she brought all of her false gods with her, including one in particular named Baal. And Jezebel did not like the Israelite traditions in the land. In fact, she rounded up all of the righteous priests and asked for them to be killed. She wanted them out of the land. And so that's where we end up before we even start our reading. That's why it's important to know the context for this week. We start with wicked King Ahab. His wife is Jezebel. They're trying to get everyone to worship Baal and other false gods. They've literally tried to kill all the priests in the land, although someone stepped in and saved that. We'll talk about that in a minute. And it's not good. So chapter 17, here we go. We meet a prophet named Elijah. Yes, Elijah. And Elijah goes to wicked King Ahab and says, you've not been doing good things. And so there's going to be a drought in the land because everyone needs to be humbled. The Lord has told me there's going to be a drought. And King Ahab is like, okay, cool, Prophet Elijah. That doesn't sound true. See you later. So he sends Elijah out. And sure enough, there is a drought in the land. And the Lord takes care of Elijah and makes sure that Elijah is being well fed. At one point, he sends ravens to help feed Elijah. The drought is very, very bad, and it is literally killing people. It is a bad drought. Now, at one point, he runs into a widow woman, and this woman is out there trying to collect whatever she can for food, and Elijah asks if she will feed him, and she says, I can't feed you because I'm going to collect this food that I can. I'm going to take it home to my son. We're going to eat it, and we're going to die because we have no food left. This is a drought. And Elijah says, will you feed me first? And I imagine that this widow woman had to have some sort of spiritual confirmation that this was a man of God asking her to do this. She feeds Elijah first, and Elijah blesses her that she will never run out of food or nourishment. And it's true. It comes true. And in fact, a little while later, this woman's son gets really sick and he dies. And Elijah raises him from the dead. So a beautiful, miraculous situation here with Elijah and this widowed woman and her son, raising him from the dead. You hear my little baby helper over here. Chapter 18, now we meet a guy named Obadiah. Obadiah is King Ahab's kind of a right-hand man, a helper in King Ahab's household. Obadiah is righteous, though, because Obadiah was the guy who saved a bunch of the righteous priests when Jezebel was like, kill them all. Obadiah gathered them in a cave and made sure that they were kept safe. So Obadiah, while he's working for the king, he believes in the Lord, and he finds Elijah, and he's like, Elijah, the prophet, you need to meet with King Ahab. And Elijah says, okay, I'm ready to meet with King Ahab. And Obadiah's like, you got to make sure this actually happens, because we got to get you guys together. And King Ahab is blaming everything on you. So Elijah and King Ahab, they finally meet back up. The drought has been going on for about 3.5 years at this point. So 3.5 years have passed of this very serious drought. And King Ahab is like, Elijah, you're making this drought. It's terrible. You've got to stop it. And Elijah says, first of all, it's not me. And I'm not the one who caused it. That was your actions. But also, let's settle this. Why don't we go to Mount Carmel? And I want you to bring all of your priests of Baal, and let's see who the right God is. And so they all gather to Mount Carmel. I'm sure you've heard of this account before. And Ahab comes with all of his priests of Baal, hundreds of priests. And Elijah comes by himself. Now, it's been a drought. Everything is super dry. And so Elijah says, listen, let's build an altar. Why don't you call on your priests of Baal, have your priests of Baal call on their God and see if they can start fire. See if the gods can strike fire. And the priests of Baal do this literally all day long. They're not able to bring fire. And so now it's Elijah's turn. And Elijah decides to up the ante a bit because the wood is so dry, it's a drought. But he decides to douse it with water. And he also digs a moat around the outside of it and fills it with water. He douses it 3 times with water. He's trying to make this as difficult as possible. He calls on the Lord to create fire and burn his burnt offering, and he does. And as a result, many of the Israelites are converted who watch this, and then all the priests of Baal are killed. And Elijah says to King Ahab, okay, go home and tell Jezebel what just happened. Kind of like, I just proved that my God is the right God, and I disproved the God that your wife worships. Now in chapter 19, the last chapter, Ahab goes back home. Jezebel, as you can guess, is furious. And she says, Elijah's got to be killed. Absolutely, Elijah has got to go. And Elijah is actually terrified about this. In fact, he kind of falls into a depression, and he's really upset by the fact that Jezebel is seeking after his life, but the Lord finds ways to nourish him in small ways. Elijah eventually makes his way to Mount Horeb. Remember, Mount Horeb is the same as Mount Sinai, so a very important mountain in terms of their religious heritage there in the area. But he travels to Mount Horeb, and he is just distraught. In fact, he's pleading to the Lord, and he's saying basically, I feel like I'm the only righteous person left. I'm the only one who's trying to do what's right. This is too much. I can't bear this burden of being the only person who knows who the true God is. And some big storms pass by, and fires, and the Lord is not in those big things. The Lord teaches Elijah that the Lord is always in the still, small voice. And he tells Elijah, you're not the only righteous one left. And he shows him who the righteous people are. And he shows him, in fact, one person in particular that he wants him to go find when he gets off this mountain, named Elisha. And so Elijah gets off the mountain, and on his way back into civilization, he finds Elisha and kind of calls him to join him in the work. And Elisha becomes Elijah's like secondhand man. He's his little disciple. He's following him, and he's learning from Elijah. And these two men end up serving together. We don't read about, and we also don't get many details about what these two men did together. But we do know that Elisha learned so much from Elijah. That's it. That's what we learn about, okay? So chapter 17 really focuses on the beginning of the drought and the story with the widowed woman sacrificing to follow the word of the prophet Elijah. Chapter 18 is about the big showdown on Mount Carmel with the priests of Baal. And then chapter 19 is kind of this more emotional chapter, learning. We really see Elijah's emotions. It's a beautiful chapter that I think many of us can relate to a lot of these feelings he's had on Mount Horeb and what the Lord does to comfort him. I think my personal guiding question for this week is going to be about that idea that the Lord is in the still small voice. And if the Lord is in the still small voice, am I making enough still small moments in my day that I can hear him? All right, have a great week this week. Remember to grab your study guide because you need it this week, every single week. First of all, if you love Big Picture Mondays, you absolutely will love this study guide because I give you the Big Picture Monday information in written form. If you've ever been like, wait, Callie said that something in her video about this, but I don't have time to go and watch the whole thing or find where she said it. It's all written out here in nice little bullet points. But then, of course, I give you so much more information about the big picture as well, fun facts, anything that I thought was interesting that you need to know. I give you little chapter summaries that are actually in like real normal person English, the way that I talk, and any context that you need to know specifically for each chapter so that you feel confident about that. And then I give you 7 spiritual guiding questions to keep you focused on how to actually apply the scriptures. And this is for every single week for the next 3 months. I know, I'm almost done. I make it because it's what I have always wanted in a study guide. And I absolutely love creating them. Once again, you can get a physical book shipped to you just like this from Amazon, or if you prefer a digital download so that you can keep it on an iPad or print it out yourself, or you do have permission to share it with the people in your family. So if you've got teenagers, this is absolutely written in teenager talk as well. You can share that with them in a digital download on my website as well. Okay, have a great week this week studying about the amazing prophet Elijah and what he was able to do, and happy studying.